The eggs were gone again. Every morning, I'd trudge out to the coop, my boots sinking into the dewy grass, expecting the warm heft of fresh eggs in my basket. And every morning, I'd find nothing but scattered straw and smug chicken clucks. At first, I thought it was raccoons, maybe a fox. But raccoons don't leave neatly clipped wire or footprints that match Karen's orthopedic sneakers. Karen, my neighbor, the self-appointed queen of our HOA, had been stealing my eggs. Why? I could only guess spite, greed, or just the thrill of crossing a line. I'd moved to this quiet cul-de-sac in Willow Creek for peace, to raise my chickens and grow my tomatoes, but Karen had other plans. She'd been a thorn in my side since day one, her clipboard always at the ready, her voice sharp enough to curdle milk. Your fence is 2 inches too high, she'd say, or your mailbox isn't regulation blue. I'd nod, smile, and fix it because that's what you do in a place like this. You keep the peace. But eggs? That was personal. That was war. I started noticing the pattern in spring. My hens, Dolly, June, and Patsy, were laying like champions, 6 eggs a day, sometimes 7. I'd built their coop myself, a sturdy little haven with cedar planks and a tin roof that sang in the rain. I'd check at dawn, my breath fogging in the cool air, and find the nest boxes empty. No cracked shells, no yolk stains, just absence. I set up a trail cam, hidden in the lilac bush. The footage was grainy, but there she was, Karen, in her floral muumuu, sneaking in at 5 a.m., her flashlight bobbing like a thief's. She'd snip the wire, scoop the eggs, and slip away, her face smug as she glanced around. I watched that video a dozen times, my blood boiling hotter each loop. I could have confronted her, banged on her door, and demanded answers. But Karen wasn't the type to admit fault. She'd twist it, make me the villain, rally the HOA to fine me for disturbing the community. No, I needed something sharper, something that had hit her where it hurt. I spent weeks stewing, my anger simmering like a pot left too long on the stove. I'd see her at HOA meetings, her platinum bob gleaming under fluorescent lights, her voice dripping with fake concern as she lectured about neighborhood standards. She'd smile at me, all teeth, and I'd smile back, imagining her cracking one of my stolen eggs and finding it filled with hot sauce. I started small, testing her. I left a fake egg, painted to look real, filled with glitter. The next morning, it was gone, and Karen showed up to the community picnic with a faint shimmer on her hands. She didn't mention it, but I saw her scrubbing furiously by the punch bowl. It wasn't enough. Glitter was petty. I needed justice. I needed her to feel the sting of her own greed. That's when I met Amos. He was a grizzled old trapper who lived on the edge of town, his yard a jungle of rusted traps and taxidermy projects. I'd heard rumors about him at the feed store, whispers of a man who could catch anything, coyotes, raccoons, even the occasional bear. I drove out to his place, my truck rattling down a dirt road, and found him whittling on his porch. "Got a skunk problem?" he asked, not looking up. I laughed, nervous, and told him the truth, sort of, "Not a problem, exactly. I need a lesson delivered." He raised an eyebrow, his knife pausing mid-carve. I explained about Karen, the eggs, the sneaking. Amos didn't smile, but his eyes glinted. "Skunk'll do it," he said. "Smart, smelly, and they don't back down. But you sure? Ain't no half measures with a skunk." I nodded, my heart pounding. He quoted me a price, handed me a cage with a live skunk inside, and gave me one piece of advice: don't let it see you. Back home, I waited until midnight. The cul-de-sac was silent, the streetlights casting long shadows. I carried the cage to the coop, my hands sweating despite the cool night. The skunk, black and white, with eyes like polished marbles, stared at me through the bars. I set the cage inside the coop, unlatched it, and backed away fast. The skunk waddled out, sniffed the air, and curled up in the straw like it owned the place. I wired the coop shut, tighter than usual, and went to bed, my stomach churning with equal parts dread and glee. Karen would come at dawn, like always. She'd open the coop, expecting eggs, and find something else entirely. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there, imagining her scream, her perfect muumuu ruined, her HOA throne wobbling. Dawn broke, and I was at my kitchen window, coffee cold in my hand, watching the Coop. Right on cue, Karen appeared, her flashlight beam cutting through the mist. She moved with her usual confidence, snipping the wire, swinging the door open. Then it happened. A sharp yelp, a stumble, and the unmistakable stench of skunk spray. I clapped a hand over my mouth to stifle a laugh as she staggered back, waving her arms like she could shoo the smell away. The skunk waddled out, unhurried, and Karen froze, her face a mask of horror. She bolted, tripping over a garden hose, and disappeared into her house. I thought that was it. Lesson learned. But I was wrong. Karen wasn't the type to slink away quietly. She was plotting, and I just lit the fuse. The fallout came faster than I expected. By noon, my phone was buzzing with texts from neighbors. HOA emergency meeting tonight, one read. Karen says you booby-trapped her, another accused. I stared at the messages, my stomach sinking. Karen had spun the story before I could even catch my breath. I pictured her, still reeking of skunk, rallying the cul-de-sac with her version of events. Poor, innocent Karen, victim of a malicious neighbor. I'd underestimated her. She wasn't just a thief. She was a strategist, a master at playing the martyr. I spent the day cleaning the coop, the skunk long gone, its scent lingering like a warning. The hens clucked nervously, sensing the storm brewing. I kept replaying the morning, her scream, the way she tripped and run. It was satisfying, but now I was the one cornered. The meeting was at Karen's house, her living room a shrine to HOA power, framed bylaws on the walls, a gavel on the coffee table. I walked in head high, but the air was thick with judgment. Neighbors I'd shared coffee with, laughed with, now avoided my eyes. Karen stood at the front, her muumuu swapped for a crisp blazer, her hair still faintly damp from scrubbing. This, she said, her voice trembling with rehearsed outrage, is about safety, about trust. Someone, she pointed at me, her manicured nail like a dagger, set a dangerous animal loose in our community. Gasps rippled through the room. I opened my mouth to protest, but she barreled on. I was checking on her chickens, out of neighborly concern, and I was attacked. She held up a stained sleeve, Exhibit A. The room erupted in murmurs. I felt the walls closing in. I stood, my voice steady despite the heat in my cheeks. Karen, you weren't checking on my chickens. You were stealing my eggs. Every morning. I have video. The room went silent. Her eyes widened, just for a second, before she recovered. That's absurd, she snapped. You're deflecting. You endangered me, this neighborhood. But doubt flickered in a few faces. I pulled out my phone, ready to play the trail cam footage, when Mrs. Delaney, the elderly widow next door, spoke up. I saw her too, she said softly, sneaking into your yard before dawn. I thought she was just nosy. The twist hit like a lightning bolt. Karen's face drained of color. Mrs. Delaney, quiet and unassuming, had been watching all along. The room shifted, eyes turning to Karen now. I seized the moment. I set the skunk to protect my property, I said, because someone was trespassing, stealing. If you want to talk about safety, let's talk about trust. I played the video, Karen's flashlight bobbing, her hands snatching eggs. Neighbors leaned forward, whispering. Karen's blazer seemed to wilt on her frame. She tried to interrupt, claiming the video was doctored, but the evidence was clear. The meeting dissolved into chaos, voices overlapping, accusations flying. Karen stormed out, slamming her own front door. I thought I'd won, but victory felt hollow. The neighbors were divided. Some apologized, some glared. I'd exposed her, but I'd also cracked the fragile peace of Willow Creek. That night, I couldn't sleep. The skunk had been my weapon, but it had also made me the bad guy in some eyes. I wondered if I'd gone too far. Karen wasn't just a thief. She was a symbol of control, of rules that bound us tighter than we wanted. Breaking her meant breaking something bigger, and I wasn't sure what would come next. I sat on my porch, the coop quiet in the moonlight, and noticed a shadow moving across Karen's lawn. Not her, someone smaller, quicker. A kid, maybe They dropped something by our mailbox and ran. Curious, I walked over, my flashlight catching a glint of white. It was an egg, cracked open with a note tucked inside. "You're not the boss of us." My heart skipped. This wasn't just my fight anymore. The egg with the note changed everything. By morning, the cul-de-sac was buzzing, not with Karen's outrage, but with whispers of rebellion. Someone had spray-painted "Egg Thief" on a pristine white fence. A group of teens, usually glued to their phones, were giggling by the mailboxes, tossing eggshells into her rose bushes. I watched from my porch, coffee in hand, torn between amusement and unease. I'd wanted Karen to face consequences, but this felt bigger, wilder. The note wasn't mine, but it carried my spark. I'd lit a match, and now the neighborhood was catching fire. I wonder who the kid was, what else they knew. Were they watching Karen too? Or was this just kids seizing a chance to poke at authority? Karen didn't show her face that day, but her presence loomed. Her curtains twitched, her car stayed parked. I knew she was plotting, regrouping. I checked the coop, half expecting retaliation, but the hens were fine, laying eggs like nothing had happened. I collected 5, their shells warm and perfect, and felt a pang of pride. This was mine, earned through sweat and care, not stolen. But as I carried the basket inside, I saw Mrs. Delaney hobbling across her lawn, her face pale. "You need to see this," she said, handing me a crumpled flyer. It was an HOA notice, signed by Karen, calling for a vote to ban backyard chickens. "Threat to hygiene and safety," it read. My stomach dropped. This was her counterattack, her way of hitting me where it hurt most. I spent the day rallying allies. I knocked on doors, showed the video to anyone who'd listen. Some neighbors, like Mr. Patel, who'd always admire my hens, were outraged. "She's gone too far," he said, promising to vote no. Others, like the Thompsons, who kept their lawn manicured to Karen standards, shrugged. "Rules are rules," they said. I realized Karen's influence ran deeper than I'd thought. She'd built a network of loyalty, or maybe fear, over years of HOA meetings and passive-aggressive notes. By evening, I was exhausted, my hope fraying. That's when I found a second twist. A package on my doorstep, no note, just a small wooden box. Inside was a single egg, painted black, with a crack running through it. A threat? A prank? I didn't know, but it felt like Karen's handiwork, a warning that she wasn't done. The vote was set for the next evening, and the tension in Willow Creek was palpable. Kids rode their bikes slower, watching. Neighbors whispered over fences. I couldn't shake the image of that black egg, its shell cold and unnatural. I started doubting myself. Had I pushed too far? Was losing my chickens the price of my revenge? I stayed up late, drafting a speech for the meeting, my words sharp but honest. I'd fight for my hens, for my right to live simply, freely. But as I wrote, I heard a noise outside, a soft thud like something heavy hitting the ground. I grabbed my flashlight and ran to the backyard. The coop door was open, the wire cut again. My heart pounded as I scanned the darkness. No Karen, no Skunk, just silence. Then I saw it. Another egg, black as the first, nestled in the straw. This time, there was a note. "You started this. I'll finish it." The black eggs haunted me. 2 now, each a silent jab, their painted shells gleaming with menace. I didn't sleep that night, my mind racing. Karen was escalating, turning my prank into a war of shadows. I checked the trail cam, but the footage was blank. Someone had smeared mud over the lens. Clever. I tightened the coop's locks, my hands shaking, and wondered how far she'd go. The HOA vote loomed like a guillotine, and I knew she'd use every trick to sway it. I needed a plan, something to counter her narrative, but the eggs kept nagging at me. Were they her work or someone else's? The kid with the note, maybe? Or was the neighborhood itself turning, its quiet resentments bubbling up? The morning of the vote, I found another flyer. This one slipped under my door. It was a photo of the skunk, blurry but unmistakable, with text screaming, "Dangerous animals in our community." Karen's name was stamped at the bottom, her signature a flourish of triumph. I crumpled it, my anger flaring. She was painting me as a reckless menace, twisting my defense into an attack. I marched to the community center, the flyer in my pocket, my speech memorized. The room was packed, neighbors squeezed into folding chairs, the air thick with whispers. Karen stood at the podium, her face a mask of righteous concern. "We're here to protect our community," she began, her voice smooth as venom. "Backyard chickens attract pest disease. And some of us," her eyes flicked to me, "resort to violence to protect them." I stood, cutting her off. "Violence? You mean protecting my property from a thief?" I held up the crumpled flyer, then my phone, the trail cam video cued. "Let's talk about who's been sneaking into my yard, stealing my eggs." I hit play, and Karen's flashlight dance filled the screen. Gasps, murmurs, a few stifled laughs. Karen's composure cracked, her hands gripping the podium. "That's irrelevant," she snapped. "The issue is safety." But I wasn't done. I told them about the eggs, the wire, the months of theft. I talked about my hens, how they were more than livestock. They were my peace, my pride. Neighbors nodded, some clapping. Mrs. Delaney stood, her frail voice cutting through. "I've seen her take those eggs. She's no victim." The room turned. Karen's allies faltered, their eyes darting. I felt a surge of hope, but then she played her trump card. "If we allow this," she said, her voice low, "what's next? Traps? Poison? We're a community, not a battlefield." She was good, too good. Doubt crept back into the room. The vote was called, and I watched hands rise, then fall, my heart sinking with each eye for the ban. It was close, too close. When the final tally came, I'd lost by 3 votes. My chickens were outlawed. Karen smiled, a victor's smirk, and I felt the ground shift beneath me. Everything I'd fought for, my hens, my freedom, slipped away. The loss hit like a punch. I walked home in a daze, the community center's fluorescent lights still buzzing in my head. My hens were safe for now. Karen's ban gave me 30 days to rehome them, but the thought of losing them was unbearable. Dolly's soft clucks, June's bossy strut, Patsy's habit of pecking my boots, they were family. I sat in the coop, straw sticking to my jeans, and let the weight of it sink in. I'd exposed Karen, humiliated her, but she'd won. Her rules, her control had crushed me. The black eggs still nagged at me, their meaning unclear. Were they her taunts, or someone else's rebellion? I didn't know, but they felt like a warning I'd ignored. The next morning, I found another egg, this one on my porch. Black, cracked, with a note. "We're not done." My blood ran cold. This wasn't Karen style. Too reckless, too raw. I scanned the cul-de-sac, but it was quiet, the sunrise painting the lawns gold. I tucked the note in my pocket and went to check the coop. The hens were fine, but the wire was cut again, looser this time, like someone had been interrupted. I fixed it, my hands steady but my mind racing. Someone was watching, playing a game I didn't understand. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. I went to Mrs. Delaney first. She was watering her roses, her hands trembling slightly. "I saw a boy," she said, her voice low. "Last night, near your coop. Hoodie, sneakers." He ran when I turned on my porch light. A boy. The note by Karen's mailbox. The eggs. It clicked. Kids, rebelling against her iron grip, using me as their spark. I thanked her and headed to the park, where the neighborhood teens hung out. I found them by the basketball court, tossing eggs at a trash can, laughing. One, a lanky kid with a red hoodie, froze when he saw me. "You the one leaving black eggs?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. He hesitated, then nodded. "We hate her," he said. "She finds my mom for everything. Grass too long, car too old. We saw your video. Thought we'd help." Their help was a wild card, dangerous but useful. I told them to stop, to stay safe, but I left with a plan. Karen's victory wasn't final. I had 30 days, and I had allies, even if they were reckless teens. I spent the next week organizing quietly. I printed flyers of my own, showing the video stills, the truth about Karen's theft. I slipped them into mailboxes, posted them on the community board. Neighbors started talking, not just about eggs, but about Karen's reign, her fines, her threats, her control. The cul-de-sac was fracturing, and I was the wedge. The The rebellion grew quietly, like roots cracking pavement. Neighbors who'd once nodded at Karen's rules now whispered about her. Mr. Patel organized a petition to revisit the chicken ban. Mrs. Delaney baked cookies for anyone who'd sign. Even the Thompsons, Karen's loyalists, started dodging her calls. I kept my head down, tending my hens, but I felt the shift. The black eggs stopped appearing, the teens apparently heeding my warning, but their spark had caught. Karen wasn't untouchable anymore. Still, I braced for her next move. She wasn't the type to lose gracefully. It came at the next HOA meeting, a week before my 30 days were up. Karen arrived with a lawyer, a slick man in a gray suit who handed out packets titled Community Safety Ordinance. It was a new rule, drafted overnight, requiring inspections of all backyards for hazards. My coop was the target, but the wording was broad enough to let Karen poke into every home, every life. "This is about protecting us," she said, her voice syrupy with concern. I stood, my flyers in hand, ready to fight, but the lawyer cut me off. "Legal precedent supports this," he said, citing cases I couldn't counter. The room was tense, neighbors torn. I saw fear in their eyes, fear of Karen's power, fear of losing their own freedom. I left the meeting shaken, my hope fading. That night, I found another black egg, this one on my doorstep, no note. It felt like a taunt, but not from the teens. Karen was playing mind games again, or so I thought. I was wrong. The next morning, I woke to sirens. A fire truck was parked outside Karen's house, smoke curling from her garage. Not a big fire, just enough to blacken her pristine walls. The neighborhood gathered, whispering. "Arson," they said. A kid in a hoodie, seen running. My heart sank. The teens had gone too far, and I'd be blamed. Karen emerged, her face pale, but her eyes blazing. She pointed at me, her voice carrying over the sirens. "This is your fault." The accusation hit hard. Neighbors stared, some nodding. I tried to explain the eggs, the video, the truth, but the smoke and Karen's tears drowned me out. The police questioned me, their eyes skeptical. I showed them the trail cam footage, the black eggs, but it wasn't enough. The teens were gone, scattered, and I had no proof they'd acted alone. Karen's lawyer swooped in, spinning a story of my vendetta. I was facing fines, maybe worse. My hens, my home, my place in Willow Creek, it was all slipping away. I sat in the coop that night, Dolly nestled in my lap, and felt the weight of my choices. I'd wanted justice, but I'd unleashed chaos. The days that followed were a blur of guilt and defiance. The fire was ruled accidental, a faulty extension cord, not arson, but the damage was done. Karen's narrative had taken root. I was the troublemaker, the one who'd brought a skunk and chaos to Willow Creek. I kept to myself, tending my hens, counting down the days until I'd have to give them up. But the neighborhood wasn't done. The petition to save my chickens gained traction, signatures piling up. Mr. Patel dropped by with a list of names, his eyes bright. "We're not letting her win," he said. Even Mrs. Delaney, frail as she was, stood on her porch, passing out flyers with my video stills. The teens, chastened but unbowed, admitted to the black eggs but swore they'd stopped short of fire. I believed them. Karen's garage was her own trap, her own karma. The final HOA meeting was electric. The community center overflowed, neighbors standing in the back, kids peering through windows. Karen took the podium, her lawyer at her side, ready to push her ordinance. But Mr. Patel stood first, holding the petition. "We're here to vote on trust," he said. "Not just chickens, but who runs this place." He read names, dozens of them, demanding Karen step down as HOA president. The room roared, some cheers, some boos. I stood, my voice steady. I made a mistake with the skunk, I admitted. But I was protecting what's mine. Karen stole from me, from us, with her rules, her fines, her control. This isn't about eggs. It's about freedom. Karen tried to interrupt, but the crowd drowned her out. Mrs. Delaney, her voice trembling, told her story of watching Karen sneak into my yard. Others spoke up. Fines for overgrown grass, threats over unapproved paint colors. The lawyer fidgeted, sensing the tide turning. When a vote came, it wasn't even close. The chicken ban was overturned. Karen's ordinance failed, and in a move no one saw coming, the neighborhood voted her out. She left the room in silence, her blazer crumpled, her reign over. I kept my hens. Dolly, June, and Patsy laid eggs again, their clucks a quiet triumph. The cul-de-sac healed, slowly. Neighbors waved, shared coffee, laughed about the skunk. Karen moved away a month later. Her house sold to a young family who planted wildflowers. I never saw another black egg, but I kept one, a reminder of how close I'd come to losing everything. Willow Creek wasn't perfect, but it was ours again. We'd fought for it, not with traps or fire, but with truth, with community. And every morning when I collected my eggs, I felt it, the weight of a small victory, hard won, and the warmth of home.